Chapter 18. Through these messages the outline of the status of human ity has been established. Further detail is available to those who desire to investigate beyond what is easily perceived when viewing the media presented information in light of this information. That a hoax of major proportions is being perpetrated is difficult to miss. There is one magic show after another being presented for viewing while the global manipulations continue to restructure national, continental, and hemispheric lines of demarcation. The structure of the world as you know it is being dissolved at its very foundations. The plan is at a stage now that it can no longer be prevented. It can yet be sabotaged at specific points to frustrate and slow the process somewhat to give more time in which to reach more people. This material is being distributed at its starting point in the USA, but through the group foci must entail a planetary appeal to be all-inclusive of humanity as a whole. The process of the plan is the same and different in every local on the planet. Thus, whether in the vernacular of one country or another, the end result of the plan of planetary slavery is the same. The variety within the human experience must be transcended in order that a true group focus can be attained. The division of ethnicity into race must be dissolved and humanity must consider itself one race, a word best abandoned for it too reflects emotions that do not serve the birth of the new paradigm. The oneness that is to be sought will transcend the need for identification of diversity. Diversity need not be bred out in order to attain what can only be accomplished within each personal awareness. Appreciation of the opportunity to experience self-awareness manifested into the glory of a human body and evolve through the process of expressing creational energy negates the necessity to delineate personal differences in this way. It is a natural evolution of that awareness. Appreciation of the gift of self-awareness is understanding that a piece of absolute potentiality that is the sum and substance of the all that is the point of coagulation around which all living things exist. To comprehend it is to honor it and come to understand that it is both fragile and tenaciously committed to evolving through that potentiality that is innate within its very nature. Understanding this simple truth of who and what humanity is has been buried beneath a landslide of superfluous information that has been pushed on mankind to ensure distraction and prevent this essential discovery. The distorted need to be fixed, leading to worship of both misunderstood visitors and an imagined outside source for this help, has held the transplanted humans on this planet in a self-created bondage. Many of those who have attained the return to genetic balance remain programmed into the old systems of belief that have failed for thousands of years to achieve the desired goals. It is time for them to awaken and to again experience true human evolvement. It is the truth that will set them, free. When this information is contemplated in the quiet of inner awareness, it will resonate and be known by those who are genetically balanced. This will raise the question as to whether all those within the same family are automatically genetically balanced. The genes for each are randomly selected at each conception, thus these float within nearly all families at this sequential point. There will be those that are more susceptible to the negative programming that will seem not to carry the gene balance. Again, free will is freely given. All will be accepted if the realization is sincere even at the last moment. But it is likely that as the initial statement of purpose circulates, the words will resonate and the wake-up call will be answered. The simple few words, translated into all languages, will resound within and in its repetition it will demand an answer within that cannot be denied. The yearning of all the previous generations denied the freedom to evolve is carried at cellular levels and through the genetic release is available when the trigger is activated. It is the response by the first few to this pent-up yearning that will bring forth the freedom cry that will begin the wondrous process of the birthing of the new paradigm. It is time now. The repetitions in the message are meant to offset the continuous barrage of disinformation that has been the foundation of human existence for these thousands of years and now reaches a crescendo as the second shoe is nearly ready to be dropped. The emphasis on waking up and accepting the magnitude and duration of the frustrating trip of this branch of humanity down a dead-end path is the essential beginning for changing the conscious perception of this experience. This is then followed by the awareness that this consciousness change is the first layer of the foundation for the new paradigm. Without a firm foundation on the rock of truth, nothing of lasting value can be built. The next step is either participating in the conception of the beginning statement or the proliferation of it once it is conceived and the further conception of the bare skeleton of what the new paradigm is to become. Not rules and regulations, but what living within it would involve. Dreaming the dream in a sheer playful mode. A rose was created through a play of possibilities. A lily, a monkey, a squirrel, an otter, an elephant were all created in a playful mode of potential possibilities. Man/woman must become childlike and consider outlandish and outrageous possibilities until the perfect ideas begin to gel. This is best done within groups with the same intent. Even the most closed will join the spirit of the task and often have the most amazing contributions. The hostess must set the mood of safety and spontaneity and allow the group to take it from there. Levity opens the door to creativity and the release of true human nature. We are all the children of creation and are set loose to playfully learn who we are and what we are truly capable of doing, governed only by the laws of the universe. It must, however, be firmly understood that these do strictly govern, are immutable, and every act outside them draws its effects within creation's own, not necessarily sequential, timing. This is known now as divine order. Chapter 19. The desire to understand the imbalance that followed the original DNA alteration that originated within the natural flow of self-contemplation became an abnormal obsession to know for the group of transplanted humans on planet Earth. The generations followed one another in their searches within and without failed to give them understanding. The tendency to over-respond to all real and misinterpreted threats became the outlet for the desire to understand this imbalance known at the level of intuition. Realizing that this tendency left unbridled would lead to annihilation, religion as an inhibiting factor was introduced. Without the aid of memory or records, it was to provide a historical point of origin as one could best be intuited and to institute some form of control to prevent annihilation. Over sequential time, various points of focus were used. The visitation of beings from other planets provided the best possible focus, particularly those who came in attempts to teach and finally to introduce changes in the gene pool as a last resort in their efforts to help this branch of humanity to continue to evolve. There are two important points of understanding to be made clear. These beings came in benevolence and did not wish to be the object of religious focus. However, the genetic introduction produced offspring that were noticeably more intelligent, but not noticeably less violent if provoked. Because of this, these offspring became leaders and usually the focus points or priests of the religious cults. As assisting priests were added, the roles became confused and distorted. Deification of the first of these leaders followed within a few generations of death, and various levels of deification of those following happened periodically. Because of their difference, the firstborn male of each following generation inherited the leadership role and the task of propagating the perceived change, thus creating dynasties of leaders. The remaining progeny intermarried and spread the genetic changes. Because of the focus of male leadership by dominant expression of the aggressive tendency through warfare, females came to be regarded as being of lesser importance except for the propagation of the male for conquest. It is important that present-day humanity understand its true cosmology. There were what you call indigenous populations already on the planet and evolving through their own natural processes when the transplanted group arrived. The confusion within the efforts of present-day scientists trying to create a cosmology from their point of view for the planet is easily understood. They are unable to consider the effects of both types of humans being suddenly present at one point in history, and they are unaware of the gene pool additions to the marooned group and the blending of all three ingredients in both the past and the present. This puts them at an extreme disadvantage, and their conclusions add only more confusion for an already frustrated branch of humanity. It is necessary to note here that now the indigenous population evolution has been distorted, as few if any remain isolated from proselytizing contacts. Further, the environmental situation includes them within the planetary whole. The Aboriginal tribe of Australia no longer propagates and is asking to reincarnate elsewhere in the galaxy. If help is again refused, this will be honored, as they are innocent of any involvement in the chaos forced upon on this planet. Humanity's roots and how its history has played out is not important for a delineated timeline, but for an understanding of how the frustration of being marooned was experienced and what far-reaching solutions were tried. Left to deal with their altered genetics, humanity has in its confusion refused benevolent help and accepted distorted help. The roots of the refusal and distortion lay within the alteration and its effects that enhanced more than the self-defense aspect. Cooperation became competition, which enhanced greed, lust, and the pursuit of power over each other, to name just a few. The knowledge of this history brings forth a fork in the road, and with it the decision to continue on the same dead-end path or to accept this offer of help that is again being made. For those willing to comprehend the plans for the present path, it would seem the choice would be easy. However, the ingrained programming of looking for rescue rather than accepting the responsibility of making the necessary changes requires leaving behind a long-established comfort zone. To literally climb out of the morass of confusion to a point of overview, observe the struggling masses expending their energy swimming upstream against the flow of creative energy because of a false perception of who and what they are through misconceptions and misinformation, takes courage. It is not an easy opportunity to accept and requires a commitment to this very personal process. It involves separating from the mass conscious belief systems in order to contemplate what is true and then adopting a new concept of personal truth. Fortunately, this has already been accomplished by a surprising number of individuals. These, not knowing the history, through an instinctual awareness that there was a hidden story, relentlessly pursued their need to know. What came to be known was perceived despite the fact that what long-standing truth was known, was withheld except to the few planners. The current magical/technological cover-up continues with regard to these truths as well as the planned enslavement of all but the elite planners. Difficult as it will be for those of the Judaic-Christian heritage to accept, their cosmological story was deliberately written in a distorted form utilizing written records later conveniently hidden or destroyed and utilizing what was believed to be myths. Little known published scientific research reveals through translations of written records these myths were actual oral history passed from one generation to the next for hundreds of years. This deliberately distorted cosmology was compiled at the beginning of the planned scenario as it plays out today. When a genetically altered teacher was born within this religious focus and instructed with truth, he suffered a planned near-death and escaped to another part of the planet. Believing him dead, deification soon followed. The distortion of those teachings was almost immediate, in order that the plan being laid and yet to manifest in wholeness, might not be derailed. This genetically enhanced human's personal choice for this mission was to teach personal responsibility. This has brought forth the imposing question of what to do about changing the outcome at this late stage in the sequence of happenings leading to the planned future that is nearly incomprehensible to humanity. Thus a second layer of entreaties for help was begun by a small unorganized group of conscious awareness on this planet, one that is answerable. We have now returned to the present moment in our consideration of an encapsulated history of Earth's human population. End chapter 19.